Sometimes fiction is the only way you can really tell a story. You really can't tell every story by a nonfiction, which I never understood until this book. Because being a nonfiction writer, I thought the women of the West had just sort of been relegated to the footnotes and behind the scenes and nothing important. So the only people you had that were important in the West were the bad girls, the prostitutes that they called soiled doves, and the gunslingers, Belle Starr, Horse Thief, the people that, Calamity Jane, who was a calamity, these were the people who were the women of the Old West. There's some questions about what really happened in this story, because maybe she really wasn't that much of a rustler. Maybe she really wasn't that much of a whore. Maybe she really wasn't that much of a bad person. Maybe this was really like a bad thing. I wanted to write about women that I was discovering that blew me away. Those kinds of things are the things that feed my lust as a journalist and as a writer. And so Cattle Cade became for me like a possible new Winnie Ruth Judd, but back earlier and in a whole nother environment, in a whole nother place. And so I started researching Cattle Cade. She is the single woman in the entire history of the West that was lynched as a cattle rustler. So that story was the story that just kept compelling me, and the more and more I found out about her, the more I fell in love with her. I mean, I found this to be my kind of woman. She was feisty, she was arrogant, she was determined, she wouldn't take any BS. She was ready to have her life, and she was going to have her life on her own terms. She decided to go west on her own, which women did not do. Most women who came west came because their husbands came, their brothers came, their fathers came. Many of them came willingly and happily. Some came dragging, kicking, and screaming because they were leaving everything behind, everything civilized behind, and coming to a part of the country back in the early 1800s, mid-1800s, that was plagued by American Indians who were on the warpath because they were being exterminated, and they didn't like that. And somehow we had a terrible time understanding why they would fight back. And women had very tight roles. That corset was not just an undergarment. That corset was the symbol of what American women had to deal with every single day of their lives. Totally tied in, totally constricted, totally limited, totally told what to do. And some of these women said, that's not for me. Because the Homestead Act, like many acts in America, once you got married, the husband became the sole owner of everything. And she says, that defeats the whole purpose. He said, but I have an idea. Why don't we not tell anybody we get married? We go away someplace and get married secretly. We both get our little property, and then we can have our land, and we'll amass our little estate, and we'll be all set, and then later we'll tell people we were married. But by that time, it'll all be done, and it'll be your property. Now, if you're driven around by a bunch of drunk cowboys all afternoon who are threatening you with being a thief and being a rustler, which is the worst crime in the West, stealing someone else's cattle, right, or horses, right? And you're going to be up, you're going to mouth off to these guys. That gives you a real sense of who this woman really, really was. I'm not the one to tell this story. Ella Watson's got to tell her own story. She was muted, and her whole voice was closed off in her lifetime. The sullying of her reputation also wiped her off the pages of history where she deserved to be part of the legacy. So I say in the book, I was snookered about her too. I bought into that legend for a long time myself because I heard about this woman for a long time, and it was like, to hell with her. So, but no, she never tried to pass herself off as a man. But several women did, and were very successful at it, because they found that's the way they could have a life. Imagine that, Sold, I said. Who is younger, thinner, and has more sex than me. Who solves mysteries. What a name for a book! So I had the title for 20 years. Then I had to start figuring out how to have a plot to go with the title. Well, obviously there's got to be a death, because it's a funeral. So, okay, so that was my first clue. Guess where he ends up. Because Scottsdale, Arizona is the dumping ground for the FBI. If I were in the mafia, I would just simply go to Scottsdale. Every stupid witness protection program, they all come to Scottsdale. Anyway, this is kind of a very active book.